Hello, dear.
All right, hello, dear. I'm here with my boys, Jacob Bly and Greg Warner. How are you guys?
I'm honestly just honored that you called us your boys. That's
Yeah.
a really esteemed position to be.
I feel like
your
you
boys.
are. Would you?
Oh,
would
of
you
course,
agree? Yeah,
of course. I felt that way, but I don't want to call you my boys, and then you're like,
yeah.
we're not boys.
No, we're well-established boys.
Greg and I met at the Flappers Comedy Club in Burbank, California, like 10 years ago.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, an auspicious meeting.
Yeah. That was actually, it's funny. That was one of your worst sets that I've seen you have. I remember that. I was like, this guy's not that good.
That's funny. What did I talk about?
I don't remember.
Damn. Wow.
What
Well,
is
then I saw you-
auspicious? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I saw him do comedy later. I was like, oh, he's pretty good, actually.
Yeah, that'd be. I almost feel like defensive. I'm like, no, dude, I was just working on stuff.
Yeah. At Jake Cannon's open mic 10 years ago.
Yeah,
10 years ago.
Shout out. And then Jacob and I met in Brooklyn. You were complaining about a female comic.
Come on, dude. Don't start with that.
Sounds like Jacob.
Even if it was a male comic, I'd be okay with that. I don't remember. Do you remember who it was?
Mary, who's my girlfriend now.
Okay, good. Yeah.
You're like her. She she always talks shit about men in her jokes. Like I feel like
I
she
mean,
like hates men.
Does she?
No, I think she likes me. She likes you.
That's true. I like
Yeah.
Mary a lot. She's great.
She likes both of you.
Yeah, she's great. We're some of the good ones, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There aren't that many.
What are your guys' proudest accomplishments as men?
As men or
Yeah.
in general?
Let's do both, as in general and as men.
As in general would be my brother and I made a sketch for Adult Swim. That was a really cool
Oh,
accomplishment.
nice. Yeah.
That was a while ago. Even though it didn't end up exactly how I wanted it to, it was a great accomplishment. As a man, I don't think I've gotten there yet.
Really?
I don't
It's a
know.
really uncomfortable way to frame an accomplishment.
As a man?
Yeah. It's like, what does that imply?
Yeah, I don't know what my answer would be to that.
You know
I
what?
mean, if I was a dad, probably I would say, as a man, my proudest accomplishment is my son.
You know, I actually just had a thought.
Or
And this-
not daughter, by the way. If it was,
Yeah.
yeah.
This is a real virtue signaling thing to say, but
Yeah.
in college, I was cheated on, so I think I developed this resentment of women. I was also kind of bullied by girls when I was younger. So I
And
always
what did that look like? How did they bully you?
Let's see, finding insecurities about
Yeah.
me. Like I was depressed. My dad had just transitioned to being a woman, so I was like isolated and
Yeah.
confused. And they were like, "Oh, well, the boys aren't picking on this kid because he's
Whoa.
not that small." Or
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
So like, oh,
You were too jacked for the boys to...
yeah,
Yeah.
This kid's too
Oh
jacked to
wait,
hurt his body.
So girls in school made fun
They
of
would
you
be
because...
mean. They would say mean, cutting things. And then
Wow.
the worst was this girl I had a crush on.
About your dad transitioning?
There
Or-
was one girl who did, but this was more like
She's
just-
probably posting rainbow flags
Yeah.
every fucking June now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This was more like, why are you so quiet? Like things that were like they would just drill into you slowly. Like
that
why are
actually
you
is
so-
really familiar.
yeah, really insidious, pernicious. You're like, oh, maybe they're being friendly, and then you realize you're
Yeah.
not. But the worst ever was I had a crush on this girl, and her friend, named Julia, who became a yoga instructor, in front of the class. She stopped the class doing this like group thing. She stopped everyone. Walked up to me. The girl's nickname was Poppy. She stopped everyone and goes, "Hey Jacob, Poppy hates you." The girl I had a crush on, and I just started crying, and I sat on a desk by myself.
Damn, dude, how old were you?
10.
Wow.
And then guess what? Poppy told me she had a crush on me the whole time.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Has that ever happened to you, Greg? Girls being mean to you when you were younger?
I don't relate to this conversation at all. No, everybody likes me. It's gone pretty well, frankly.
Yeah, have you ever been bullied?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. One time I was on a baseball team in high school.
Yeah.
And the big kids would like do this hazing thing. And I remember like the biggest, scariest dude tried to hang me up by my jockstrap.
Oh, wow.
And they were like trying to lift me up, and I was like kicking them. That was
Damn.
like my only one bad event. But then I just kind of got over it and moved on.
Yeah, but also I feel like doesn't everybody bully each other on sports teams? Like isn't there kind of a mutual hazing going on at all times?
Not on Coach Walls' team.
Okay, that's true. Yeah,
That's a new kind of man.
yeah, that's right. I wonder what Tim Walls' answer would be as a man. What his proudest accomplishment is.
Wait,
I
I
guess
guess we're talking about.
Tim Walls, the vice president.
Okay, yeah. For a second, I thought you were talking about your baseball coach, but I wanted to make fun of you about getting bullied. I don't remember what it was. Oh yeah, I was going to ask you which one do you think is lamer, my bullying or his bullying?
Oh, it's interesting. I mean, yours Yours makes me more sad.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's lamer. It just fills me with like a painful empathy.
Yeah.
And Greg's is more kind of cartoony.
And it's more physical, and it's kind of a classic.
Yeah, it's more of a classic.
Very
exactly.
classic. It is very classic.
Yours is classic in a way, but it just cuts deep and
Yeah.
explains a lot about your personality
Yeah.
and your insecurities.
It's like what would
Oh
create
my
a
god,
goth
dude!
kid.
A girl being like, "Why are you so quiet?" and then you like say something. She's like, "That's a weird thing
Yeah.
to say."
That's weird. That was what destroyed me. You're so weird. Why are you being weird? That destroyed my middle school life.
Wait, Pedro, what was your bullying
Yeah,
experience?
Dude, it's all like Jacob's. It's all like girls being like, "Oh, like I heard my friend has a crush on you," and then I would like ask her out, and they'd be like, "No, stuff like that."
That's so awesome, man.
I got like beat up once, but that was like when I was like really young. But when it was like
And it
middle
was your
school, high
dad or
school,
whatever.
yeah, it was
Different kind of
yeah,
bullying.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I learned a lot from
No,
it.
actually, I'm curious. Was it was it young enough where it didn't hurt that much, kind of a beating?
No, I mean I remember pretty well, but I wonder how bad it was. My memory of it is that I was on the playground and these kids just started chasing me around and then knocked me down and started like kicking me on the ground. But I was like fucking like 6.
Okay, yeah.
So a lot of that might be like complete invention.
Yeah.
It might have been like I got pushed and I turned that into some
Right.
insane story.
Or a mix of the truth, like the fear takes over,
Right.
so you're falling on the ground. Kids maybe kicking you lightly,
Right,
but you're
right.
so scared.
Yeah. I also what I remember too is that it was all the kids in the special ed class, but they weren't actually like some of them weren't developmentally disabled. They were just like bad kids,
Right.
who just got put in like
Were there also some true special eds mixed in there beating the shit out of you?
Yeah. It all blended together,
Wow, so you objectively have the lamest one because you have both.
Yeah,
You had girls and special ed.
girls and special ed, and jocks being mean to me too,
Yeah.
but not like physically, just be fucking saying mean shit.
Have you guys ever been in a fist fight at all? Like, have you ever swung at somebody above the age of like 10 where, you're like,
No, I'm a huge coward
Yeah,
in
me
that
too.
in that
You?
direction.
Not really. Like some fights in water polo, but that doesn't really count. You got water, slowing your arm down,
Yeah,
so you can only do so
but
much.
it's both more scary because you're in the water and then less scary because you're in the water. Like your swings are probably weaker, but if you get like knocked out while you're swimming, that's terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, you just flail around. It looks stupid.
Yeah.
Wait, Greg, I don't think you answered. What's your proudest accomplishment as a person, if not as a man?
Oh man, that's tough. Honestly, probably the new wine fridge that I just got.
That is nice. Greg just got a huge wine fridge.
180 bottles. Got it for $500
Really?
secondhand. And getting it up the stairs
That
of that
was
apartment
difficult, yeah.
was insane, and I thought I might die getting crushed by my new wine fridge.
And you didn't, and now
And
you
I
have,
didn't.
and now you can drink whenever you want.
Yep.
It's,
Served at the perfect temperature.
that's beautiful.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd call what he has a status symbol. It's pretty objectively dumb, but
I don't think so.
It's blocking a window in kind of a
Yeah,
major
and
way.
It is pretty funny to because that's like something you get when you live in like a mansion.
Yes.
Like to have a huge wine
yeah, the
fridge.
people he bought it from are like, we're going to the Hamptons. We can't fit it in
No,
our
they
house.
said they had
Yeah.
like 4 fridges in the Hamptons
That's
house, and they
hilarious.
couldn't fit another one in there. So
He called 3 Ubers that wouldn't pick it up. Over 200.
yeah, he was there with me the whole time.
Did you have to get a U-Haul or something? Or an Uber
I did
eventually?
a TaskRabbit. And then that dude brought the fridge to my apartment. Me and my roommate and him tried to lift it up.
Yeah.
My roommate hurt his back and had to bail.
Wow.
And so then I
Yeah.
called these two. I had to call a bunch of moving companies to hire people. And then these 2 guys, I'm honestly pretty sure they were on some sort of stimulant because
Yeah.
one of them kept mentioning that he'd been up for 36 hours and was sweating really bad.
Whoa.
But he was really ripped. And we slowly
You
got
got
that
it done.
thing,
Yeah.
up
Like
the
Thomas
stairs.
Edison, dude. The
And
the
then-
drugs work.
And so then this is another reason I think that 2 days after we do it, I pay him, give him a big tip, give
Yeah.
him a bunch of wine. I'm like, thank you so much. The dude calls me. He's like, Greg, my car got towed outside your house, actually. Can you just throw me $70? I'll pay you back.
Yeah.
And I just was like, man, you did me such a favor. You can
Just have it,
Just
yeah,
take that crack
for
money,
sure.
dude. Yeah.
That's nice.
I'm making an assumption. Maybe he's not.
It could be any drug.
Not weed or mushrooms.
Yeah,
I'll tell you
nothing
that.
chill. He's on LSD.
Yeah.
Whoa. It's pretty...
Do you guys remember the first time you masturbated?
Yes, vividly.
Tell me.
So, here's the thing. I never really understood why.
I don't like your eager tell me, Pedro.
Well, I was just picking up on his energy. He was like, yes, and I remember it vividly.
Because I don't know why. I had this like shame of being horny, and I never understood why. I think I still sometimes do. Where like, you know, when the age where other kids are like, dude,
that's a very Catholic thing, and you're not Catholic.
No, very atheist upbringing.
Yeah.
You know, like you hear the other kids talk about jerking off, and they start joking about it.
Yeah.
That would instill like full blown panic for me.
Whoa.
Like, well, I don't do that. Like that kind of thing. I don't know why. It did feel very Catholic, and then I was like ashamed of that, and then I found out on my TV, right? We didn't have fancy cable.
Yeah.
But on Comcast, they would have like international movies from like the 70s and 80s you could watch for free. And you know those Italians, for some reason, there's a naked chick in every movie.
Oh,
Brazilians, too.
Yeah.
They're like, there's just a naked chick running by.
Yeah.
So I would like pause that, and then I would like rub myself, and then I'd be like, I'm not jerking off, though. Like, I'm not jerking off. And then the first time I came, I remember like being like, no. I was like, really? Yeah. But then like my boxers had come on them, so I was like, there's no denying this right now. I fully jerked off.
What about you, Greg?
I don't remember the first time, but I started really early.
Nice, dude.
Before anything was coming out. And I used to watch cartoons. And one time my mom was like, Greg, don't rub your crotch in the family room. And I remember it was weird.
Because your parents are like fairly progressive, right? So it's like...
Yeah, but they're like...
No, but I just mean, they wouldn't be like, no!
Greg. Yeah.
People are like, why don't you go explore yourself somewhere else?
It's weird the memories you have and the way parents interact with you.
Yeah.
Like, I remember like my mom, my dad never mentioned jacking off ever, but my mom would like talk to me about that.
Oh, that's so
And
funny.
then my dad...
What would she say?
She would just tell me do it in my room and it's okay.
Yeah.
And like, whatever.
Nice.
Because I was watching Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah, which cartoons?
Beating off to Recess.
Recess?
Yeah. ABC.
Yeah, no. I remember
Saturday
Recess.
morning.
Wait, which network was it on?
What character
I
in
wasn't
Recess?
jacking off to the cartoons. I was just kind of doing two things at once.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Multitasking. Yeah, they say men can't do it, but...
Yeah. I was enjoying the cartoon and the feeling on my dealing.
Nice,
So,
dude.
yeah.
We were just talking about this, how, like, for me, it was cartoons that turned me on first. Like, video games.
Whoa.
Like, the first time you see, like, a half-naked chick.
Yeah.
And I had the video game to myself.
Which video game?
Dead or Alive. We were just talking about this.
Nice.
It's a fighting game. Pretty legit fighting game.
Yeah.
You go to the option menu.
Yeah.
Scroll all the way to the bottom. A very hidden little option that says gravity. You turn the gravity down. A lot more bouncing. It's such a horny Japanese game that they're like really like complex fighting system with like finishing moves. And they're like, by the way, if you want the boobs to bounce,
Nice,
we added
dude.
that too.
So you turn the gravity down, and wait, was that the subject of your... Well, no, the subject of your first masturbation was an Italian film.
Italian,
Yeah.
Brazilian films, yeah.
Do you remember which movie?
I have no idea. There was one. They're usually like. It's usually like the foreign films were usually like a younger woman who's like exploring her sexuality for the first time.
Yeah.
So then she all of a sudden is like surrounded by like both horny men and women who like want to show her the ropes of like, oh, get undressed. I'll show you how to like make a man feel
Nice.
good. So it was kind of weird though. It's like almost meant for a teenager, you know?
To discover himself.
Yeah.
What about the last time you masturbated?
That was the only time I've ever done it. Actually.
Oh, yeah.
The last time I masturbated was pretty recent. Yeah,
Nice, dude.
But yeah, it's cool.
How was it?
I stayed up too late. It was one of those ones where I'm like,
You were
why
trying.
did I do that?
Was it like I need to go to bed now?
Yeah. And I'm like, what the hell, dude?
That's a funny thing that guys do. It's like, oh, like I should go to sleep. Let me pipe blue light, fucking like pornography video, with just out of context body parts and like weird. And then now I'm sleepy. Like what a perfect thing to do now. What a perfect way to lull me into slumber.
I feel like it's a battle because I feel the stress of being horny and wanting that release.
Yeah.
But then that happens and I'm just like awake after like, oh,
Yeah.
that's weird, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? Do you jerk off? You live with a...
No, yeah, I do. It was I think this past weekend.
Okay.
It's pretty nice.
You know, I will say, it's great to have a sexual partner.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just go back to jacking off and you're like, there is something really nice about it. It's simple, it's fast.
Do you ever have shit like that when you're in a relationship and you're like, dude, I need to do this?
No, that's one of the nice things. Have some sex and then you're like, oh, I remember the other thing.
Yeah.
It's both, yeah. Sometimes you want, a really nice meal. Sometimes you want a slice of pizza on the street.
Analogy. Even if you want Burger King.
I want to slum it for a second. Yeah. You know what I was thinking about? So not last time, like recently, but last time in your life, if like if you're like a really old man, like how, at a point, it'd be sad if the last time was like, you jack off and you like die in a crash or something, and you didn't last time.
What if that's die in the car crash?
Have you ever driving?
No. I thought about
You
it.
have.
You asked.
Yeah.
You?
It's awesome, dude.
No
I recommend it.
Dude, I don't know.
I actually don't recommend it. It's dangerous.
Yeah. Also, it's like worse.
It feels crazy.
It'd be like, what if somebody drives up next to you?
They don't know.
That's the point, Jacob.
Sometimes I'm like, I'm jerking off, and I'll pull next to him, like kind of.
Really done that?
Every once in a while,
You
I'm
have
like,
suspected that someone's while driving?
Well, if they look like I'm like, I got to see what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You on the road.
Exactly.
We gotta keep an eye
And
out.
it only makes us. It was the funny thing is, it was because I was sleepy. And I was like, I need something to wake me
That would
up.
put me to sleep.
No, it was exhilarating. I wonder what the statute of limitations on that. Yeah.
Is that illegal? I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
Distracted
Definitely
driving?
illegal.
Probably is illegal.
That's definitely illegal.
Yeah.
Just like public exposure. That's probably.
Yeah, I guess so. But it's like
Gray area.
I didn't have my fucking cock out of the window.
Put the Tesla in autopilot.
Yeah. Dude, with self-driving cars, that is going to become.
That's what they're for, man. That's
Yeah.
what they're making them for.
Right before a nice dinner, you want to get relaxed.
Exactly.
Just kind of feel loose.
Oh my god.
If you could talk to Joe Rogan about any culture war issue, what would it be?
First of all, I'd like to note that we are one podcast degree separation, guest separation away
absolutely.
from Joe Rogan.
Absolutely.
Shout out to Radon Hirschberg.
I know,
for bridging
yeah.
the gap.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
So yeah, maybe it'll happen.
One topic. That
One
we want-
culture war issue. One controversial culture war issue.
Can you expand upon what you consider a culture war?
Trans athletes, police shooting of minorities,
Okay.
COVID.
Right.
Yeah, I mean those are the big three I can
He's
think
just treaded these topics already so well. I would want to bring up a new one
Yeah, that's what
that
I'm
he
thinking.
hasn't applied his
of. Yeah, his unique logic to.
his special perspective.
Yeah, what would be a new what is a new one that he hasn't thought about yet? That's like a
He-
particularly like sticky culture war issue.
I think he avoids race quite a bit. Black and white issues, I think, often. I mean,
Yeah.
I honestly haven't watched him in a very long time, but he tends to stick to like white issues, I find. I could be wrong. Maybe he talks about like police brutality, but like
The thing that I just find this so funny. Greg, I've already told you this off mic, but it just made me laugh that Neil Brennan was on promoting his special, and I was just kind of listening, and then I like fell asleep, and then I woke up, and they were looking at George Floyd's fucking autopsy report. And I was like, dude, how did this happen? And just imagining trying to promote like a stand-up special, and like it used to be you just went on like the Tonight Show
for like 6 minutes.
yeah, and now it's like you have to talk to fucking Joe Rogan for 3.5 hours about George Floyd maybe having fentanyl in his system.
Oh, my
It's
God.
like you got to like steer that the right way, and then you can promote your like
Can you
fucking
think of,
project.
like Johnny Carson did that, like brings
Yeah, can
like,
you
on
imagine?
Dolly parties, like, well, what do you think about Rodney
Yeah.
King? Huh?
Oh, well,
Like,
that's what
let's look
dude.
at
It's
this
like
dead
literally
body.
every person in that era would have had the worst opinion. Like, can you imagine Rodney Dangerfield's opinions on like any issue?
What do you think about the AIDS crisis,
Yeah.
Rodney?
He smoked a lot of weed, right?
He
Rodney,
did.
yeah, I think
pretty chill,
I think
probably.
coke. He did a lot of coke more so than weed.
I
yeah.
heard that he's always smoking weed. Bob Saget had like I saw a clip where he still had Rodney Dangerfield's weed pipe.
Yeah.
And he said that Rodney before shows used to like smoke pot before he'd go on stage. That's whatever. I mean, I don't want to tell.
Okay,
fourth-hand
let me
Hollywood story.
narrow the question more.
Okay, yeah,
of the
I forgot.
three sticky cultural war issues that I mentioned, which would you be most nervous about publicly expressing your opinion about? To
What'd you say? Trans athletes.
COVID, and police shooting of black people or minorities.
Not COVID. Who cares about that?
Yeah,
that's
that's
over.
The thing is that I wish it's like I wouldn't know how to argue against like a very strong anti-vaxxer. And then be like, I wouldn't, and I wouldn't like. I think that's always my issue is that I'm like, dude, I don't know how to defend my kind of vague feeling about this issue.
Well, you're asking
You
the
know?
wrong guy because I will defend things I've never even talked about.
Is that
before,
true?
So. Well, I'm kidding, but I would all those topics I would love to talk about. I mean, obviously the trans athletes I feel like is a little more.
That's true.
personal to me,
That
so
is
would be-
personal. Yeah.
But I've thought about those other things quite a bit. So it's like and I think the one thing that
You're argumentative.
I am, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
thing. I'm Jewish. I think that's like there's some kind of like debating thing that I feel like has always been ingrained in me. But
I'm Jewish too, but I'm not
yeah,
argumentative.
but then you have the other. You have a more ethnic side. You know what I mean? Like you have
Yeah.
other culture.
But the other culture is Hispanic, which is also stereotypically
Yeah,
very
but they're also like
argumentative.
sexual and like musical.
Yeah, so instead of arguing, I have sex with everybody.
Yes, that's your guys' solution.
That does always happen. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I just think I do. Greg doesn't feel this way, but I think about these things a lot, and so
Greg doesn't think you.
think about things, right? But like,
Is that true?
I think he thinks about things. He just got a bunch of stupid opinions about them and never shuts up.
Wait, what's your guys' biggest point of contention in politics, or like, what do you guys argue about the most?
It's usually Jacob telling me that I'm a bad friend to our other friends.
no,
Oh, okay,
no,
so it's
no,
more
no.
personal.
No, that's
Yeah.
kind of. I hope that's kind of a joke because I'll disagree with him. But I think the only thing is two things with Greg politically. One is that he likes to say he's not liberal, and then all of his viewpoints are very liberal.
Yeah.
Like during the Israel-Palestine thing, which we don't have to get into. Or
Oh yeah,
shouldn't.
I should have mentioned
But,
that.
yeah,
That's
but-
like
but,
fucking.
Greg
That's
will-
number one.
Greg will-
Like, I don't want to talk about this in public.
Greg will be like,
Yeah.
dude,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
people are fucking stupid on both sides. Like people that are pro-Israel are stupid. People that are fucking pro-Palestine are stupid. I'm just right in the middle. And then I'm like, okay, so what do you want? He's like the 1967 borders. Like that's
Yeah, that's
a
what
very- I'm
Obama
like,
said.
That's a very left viewpoint. So then I'm like, you can just say that you're left, but he likes Bill Maher and he likes Joe Rogan, who are like, oh fuck these liberal snowflakes.
I would say the most left viewpoint about that issue probably right now is like Israel shouldn't exist.
Right. That's another extreme.
So I would say that's yours. I would say it's probably fair to characterize Greg's point of view as like somewhat centrist. You don't think so?
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. All
Yeah.
these maniacs on the far left have these loony ideas that are never going to happen and disregard, parts of Israel's right to exist. And obviously Israel is just a total war machine that's super fucked up and committing a total atrocity. So
Yeah.
huge bummer, kind of no matter how you look at that situation.
I think I just meant that like when I hear the like centrist Democrats, they're like they don't think of the 1967 borders.
Yeah.
They don't think of regression. They're like, let's just stop the war and Israel deserves this blah blah blah, and it's like
Right.
to take a
They don't
step-
think of them
to
as
give
like
land-
losing territory.
Yeah, to give land back to Palestine, that's like to me a very progressive viewpoint. But anyways, I think the other thing, Greg, and it's almost like just disagreeing about disagreeing, is that Greg will sometimes be like, things aren't that bad. Like everyone's a little too like doomer about this. Like everyone needs to just chill out. And I'm more like, things are bad. I agree with you. I do agree with him on most of things, but also that progress comes from people being angry about things.
Yeah.
And if you tell somebody that's like, yes, maybe in like the feminist movement, they've made a lot of progress. And I'm not saying Greg said this, but if you're to be like, hey, you made so much progress, like, why are you guys still so angry about this?
Yeah.
To them, it could be like, well, if I stop being angry, then we're going to go backwards or we're going to lose the progress and the momentum we have. But that's to me, it's like when we're debating that stuff, it's like we agree on like 95% of
I think
things.
we're both just argumentative.
Yeah, that's also it.
Yeah. It's funny. I feel like it's almost like it's not even a substantive difference in opinion. It's like a temperamental difference.
Yeah.
It's like you're just more upset about things
I
more often.
I just really like disagreeing with Jacob. I don't know why.
It is
and I
fun.
like calling him stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's true for a lot of
You
people.
rise to the bait often.
Yes, I need to stop. Like with the Celtics, the stuff he would say, he'd be like, "Yep, worst team in the East," and
Yeah.
even though I read him being like, "He's just fucking with me,"
Yeah.
and then he's like, "Yeah, Tatum's so overrated," and I'm like, "Greg, if you don't shut the fuck up, dude, like you're actually pissing me off so much right now."
What'd you think of Jason Tatum in the Olympics?
You're being a Greg right now, dude.
I'm just asking questions.
How did he do?
He barely played. I mean, at the end of the day, I
Guess
don't
he's not that
care
good.
I don't care that much. about sports. I love the Celtics. That's pretty much the only team I am excited about.
Do you love Jason Tatum? Like,
I do.
is he your favorite Celtic
No.
of all time? Who's your favorite Celtic of all time?
Of all time, I mean, it'd probably be like Paul Pierce. I mean, that's, or...
More than Kevin Garnett?
Well, there's a difference because Kevin Garnett wasn't there as long. KG's one of my favorite people in
Yeah,
sports.
he's a very entertaining person.
And an incredible basketball player.
Yeah.
Remember there's that guy who had that condition where he can't grow hair anywhere on his face or body. I don't remember what it...
Like who? A guy?
He's a player, yeah.
Oh, okay.
He played a while, maybe 10, 15 years ago. He had this condition where he can't grow hair anywhere. Alopecia, I guess is what it's called. Right? He has no hair on his face or body. And at the press conference after the game, he said, KG's trash talking goes way too far. He said I look like a cancer patient. And everyone was like, wow. And KG's like, that is not true. I said he's cancerous to his team. And I love that kind of a personality. Yeah. But I like Jaylen Brown. I just love the Celtics. I like them all. Yeah. But, Derek White, these players that are like grinded out, tough types, Marcus Smart, that's what the Boston fans like.
They need a superstar, man. I feel like Jason Tatum, doesn't have a superstar personality.
Right, but that's what we like
They're
about
not
him.
Fun to watch.
See, that's when I get mad. They are fun to watch, but I agree
Boring
that Tatum...
team, annoying fan base.
That also is true. The fan base is bad.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
I feel like every fan base is annoying to the to people who are not.
Yeah, but we're like Boston, Philly, like anywhere where they care too much, they do stupid stuff. They flip over cars, they say stupid shit, they'll threaten a player's mom or something. And it's like, you think in Philly they're like any better? I remember someone saying that their priest was wearing an Eagles jersey or something. It's like, that's insane to me.
Yeah.
And if someone did that in Boston, I wouldn't be like, well, no, that's stupid. It's embarrassing. But like in Toronto or whatever, they were flipping over cars when the Maple Leafs lost or something. It's like they just all
That's
do
kind of
it.
awesome, though. I kind of like that. Like when they rioted in L.A. when the Lakers won. It's like, dude, we won. And they're like, we'll riot.
Yeah, we're going to destroy our city.
And Lakers fan base is bad.
Why do you think it's bad?
Because they don't care.
Racist.
And it's racist.
Yeah, Mexicans.
They don't even have... The people at the Lakers games are all like rich white people. This is why they're bad.
Yeah, but the fan base extends beyond the people that actually go to the games.
That's true. But this is what I mean. You can tell a fan base based on how long the seats are empty when you're watching the broadcast. If the game starts and you can see a lot of empty seats, they don't care that much. If after halftime, the seats are pretty much empty, they don't care that much. If when the game is still some time left and the seats are pretty much empty, they don't care that much.
And you're saying this happens at the Staples Center, or at the
Miami.
Crypto.com arena?
Yeah, it happened in Miami a lot. It happens in the Lakers. And the Boston fans, they just don't leave.
Okay, let's break that down. Miami, Los Angeles, great cities, beachside,
Stuff to
wonderful
do.
weather,
Yeah.
stuff to do, good-looking people, fun activities everywhere.
Yeah.
Boston, sports, beer,
Colleges.
Seafood.
yeah.
Seafood. No, I agree. I actually think that's why. I think Boston is like, we have nothing other than this, so they're passionate about it. That's it. That's good.
Yeah.
If you don't care that much,
You grew up in Cambridge.
Yeah, which is not
Yeah.
such a timid like.
What do you think of Harvard's contribution to humanity?
It's been almost all good, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have billions of dollars in endowment.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
They probably have stolen gems from like third world countries that like would really like them back, and they're like, no, they're in our vaults, that kind of stuff. Yeah, a lot of elitism and
Facebook,
that was good. Larry Summers, he's a really respectable
that's right, yeah.
financial person. I think he's really smart and everything he says is right and good.
I know who Larry Summers is, but I don't know enough about him to pick up on.
I was being sarcastic.
I know
Okay,
that.
good.
I know to pick up on exactly what you're being sarcastic about.
He's just kind of.
Didn't he have
an
a thing
asshole.
about how like women don't know as much about like
He
science
said
or something?
something about that.
I
Yeah.
don't even know. He was just kind of a controversial and stupid figure. And my friend who works in finance was just like, yeah, he's a dumbass. And then when I would read the stuff he said and the way it was received, I was like, yeah, this guy is a piece of shit. And the fact that he was the president of the college. I mean, look, Harvard is, if you're honestly asking, Harvard is a complicated place. It's been around for like 400 years.
Is it the oldest American college?
I believe so. Maybe like Dartmouth or maybe one of those other schools. It maybe had a different name at first. But it has contributed an insane amount to, arts and culture and incredibly intelligent people have come
What's
out
the
of it.
best thing that Harvard has contributed to humanity, do you think? Can you think of it?
The tweed jacket, maybe.
Nice.
Like a rich guy in a nice wool suit.
Yeah, so just the archetype of like a
Yes.
rich guy.
Squash.
I guess Obama.
Was that where Harry Potter was filmed?
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah.
The Harvard School of Witchcraft
Yeah.
and Wizardry. No, they have too much money. And they also made my city that I grew up in very nice. And for a private university with that much money, they are surprisingly open with their campus. There are places that people don't really even know you can just walk onto. And then I'm sitting there because I've lived there long. I know, and it's like, this is insane. That I
It
can
is
just
nice.
sit here.
Hanging out on a college campus is nice.
And it's beautiful. And
It's
they
like,
could
yeah.
block off so
Yeah.
much of it. Like, oh, this building's 350 years old and this
Yeah.
field is empty with chairs for
That's
anybody to
true.
sit in.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there like, man, they could have been a lot worse about it. But yeah, they have their own problem. They've had plenty of problems too.
Who do you guys think is the greatest incel of all time?
That's a great question.
I think earlier I was thinking Vincent Van Gogh.
He didn't get laid?
I guess I just think of him.
I think he got
he's a simp.
prostitutes.
Well, I guess I feel like I don't know. I feel like if having sex with a prostitute doesn't necessarily disqualify you from being an incel. I feel like someone has to be
Kind of like a technicality that
It's a
you're escaping with.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
So I think I need to think about what we're really saying with incel, because Van Gogh to me is like a simp where he was in love and sent his ear, and she's like, I'm good. And he's like, no, please take it anyways. But they might have been in love at some point. But when you
Right.
think of incel, I think of like Paul Rubens. I think of like Pee Wee Herman, like a guy who maybe never had sex.
Do you think Pee Wee never had sex?
I don't know.
Yeah.
He could be asexual. And so maybe he's
These
an
are both
incel.
good answers, though.
Pee Wee Herman,
Yeah. They both contributed a lot to culture.
Van Gogh, and Pee Wee
Yeah.
Herman.
Greg, do you have any insights?
No, I mean maybe
As
like
an incel,
maybe Stephen Hawking.
Dude, he
Wow.
was crushing.
Yeah, he
cheated on
But
his
at
wife.
a certain point, could he still do that?
Yeah,
Oh
cheated
yeah.
on his wife.
I think maybe he was Epstein
He
related.
was.
too.
Yeah.
Well, that's another technicality situation we might be delving into.
That's interesting though, because he couldn't really physically have sex, but he could emotionally cheat on
His wife.
his wife. So it's like, can Stephen Hawking count as an incel because he physically can't have
I
sex?
just like I'm imagining him being like, "Oh my God, you're so much hotter than my wife."
Yeah, I think that happened.
I think I would need to see a list of incels.
Yeah, like prominent incels in history.
Yeah.
That's probably not Googleable.
Like Napoleon. He seems like an incel to me.
I think he was weird with women, but
Right,
he was.
yeah.
He was.
I mean, the
Fucking-
new movie that Ridley Scott directed, the like Napoleon movie, it kind of hinges on him being kind of like a weird little sex freak with his with Josephine.
I didn't see it,
I
but
felt like that movie took some liberties with history.
I think probably yes. Well, you've read Napoleon.
I just read that
biographies,
book, one book.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's.
Are there
the-
specific liberties you can remember the movie?
It was a while ago that
Yeah.
we saw it, but I felt like it made him look a little bit bumbling.
Yes. Yeah.
And I kind of didn't get the impression that he was bumbling. I think he was like a
Yeah,
driven sociopath.
it made him weirdly uncharismatic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think he actually probably like really controlled people, and a lot of people looked up to him.
For sure. Yeah.
in the book, does it talk about his like sexual
What I
interest
got
in-
from the book is that he really loved Josephine. She visited him on like whatever when he was conquering Italy, and brought her lover with her to fuck. And he just was kind of like, okay. But then eventually he was like pretty committed to her, and then he made the freaking fatal error that he acknowledged later, that he should have never left her to marry this Austrian lady for political purposes. And I think that's maybe one of the things that led to his downfall, honestly, was not having his rock.
Oh, wow. So he doesn't count as an incel.
Yeah, I had to think about I don't know. Like, the only person I know who is truly famous for actually being an incel is the Santa Barbara guy.
Yeah.
What's his name? Roger Elliott? Something Elliott?
Elliot Rogers.
Elliot
yeah.
Rogers, yeah.
I guess
Because he wrote a whole manifesto of
Yeah,
like, I am
I guess
doing this because
he-
women
yeah,
won't talk.
yeah, I
he
guess
represented the cause.
And
I guess as far as representing the archetype,
right. Because to me,
regrettably,
yeah. Like, if we think about like Pee Wee, he's not an incel. Maybe he could have had sex. He's more of a volcel to me.
Yeah.
He's a voluntarily celibate.
Have you ever had a period of your life that was incel-y?
Yes, that's actually what I was going to say. My proudest.
I could have told you that.
Yeah. I was going to say my proudest moment as a man. That's how we started with that.
Nice.
Was actually that I had resented women for a very long time. And then I was cheated on. So it kind of like had made me just confirm like, oh, women are bad or whatever. And then I remember I was just struggling to justify certain things in my head. And I learned more about the way that guys I knew were treating women. And I remember telling my friend one day, and I know this is virtue signaling, but I said, I think I need to stop hating women, and I need to work on that.
Nice.
And I thought he was going to make fun of me, and he was just like, "Man, that's actually cool to hear you say that." And he was, he wasn't like, "Yeah, finally," but he was like, we're very respected it, and was like, "Yeah, I think that's a good."
What did you do to? What steps did you take to go in that direction?
Just like cheat on them.
Learn the game.
I read the game. Neil Strauss. I paid for his class. I spent thousands of dollars.
Wait, actually, while you're here, can you, with my dozens of listeners, can you share with them the gift of the cube?
Oh, the cube.
Yeah, yeah.
So the cube is an advanced technique. It's when you can. First of all, you have to isolate a woman. That's difficult on its own. But if you can do that, you basically say, "Okay, I'm picturing a cube. I'm picturing a room, and in this room, there is a cube." And there's a ladder to it, and then there's a hatch on the ceiling. And they say, okay, think about this. And they go, okay, so how big is the cube? And they'll say something like, oh, the cube's really small. They go, okay. And then you have to say something really like subtle but very critical.
Yeah,
like it's a small cube. You're like, oh, so you view yourself as kind of insignificant.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they're like, what?
Criticize how they're envisioning the imaginary cube.
Yeah.
And in the way that you're criticizing them, you sort of point out things about their personality.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, yeah, the ladder is really tall. And you're like, oh, so you feel like you can't achieve things. And they're kind of...
That almost feels too on the nose. Like, oh, you feel like you can't achieve things. It's like that.
Right. Yeah, you say it, though.
You say that?
No, I've never done this to anybody. But I've heard him say it and then be like, yeah, I tried it on Britney Spears and she gave me her number or something. And I'm like, no, dude. No,
incredible, dude. So once you learn the cube and you learn how to control women, you become
me.
And you learn how to stop resenting them.
Yeah,
that's actually that is a nice. But I am curious. Did you was there anything you actually did to be like I'm gonna think more nicely about women?
I really think it's unfortunate, but it was like the number of times women I was friends with would show me texts from men, and sometimes there were men that I thought were cool or whatever, or maybe I just didn't think much of them. And they'd be like, oh, you know that guy that you were talking to?
Yeah.
Look at this text he sent me.
And
it's like 8 texts or like really creepy or like, hey, I just tried to reject this guy politely. And then the text is like, oh, you think you're cool, you fat bitch and stuff. And then I was like, how in my head am I going to say that women are worse when like how do I justify their behavior? And it seems to be a trend. And then, so it's not like it was like something I proactively did. I think I just try to have more sympathy sometimes, because then you also meet women that say they hate men, and then that bothered me a lot.
Yeah,
because it was like, why do you hate me?
I think it's one of those things.
Greg, you hate, but not me or you or whatever.
I think it's one of those things where it's like we should be able to say it, but I don't like when non-men say it. Like I've been thinking lately, objectively, like all the world's problem, not all, but so many are caused by men. Men are stupid. They lack awareness. Aggressive towards women. Yeah, your whole fucking deal, whatever that is. And that's definitely true. Most of the world's problems are caused by men. If women ran the world, there'd be problems, but not as many. But I don't like it when chicks start saying that stuff. I
just think there'd be different problems.
Wait, can I ask you a question? Both of you, actually. I think a huge thing is also growing up with sisters. And I did not. And I have found the guys I knew that grew up with sisters were way more comfortable with women, and also just saw them as more complex people than I was able to, because they see all that stuff. They see the heartbreak of them growing up. They see the pains that they go through. Whereas to me, girls were just like these mean people that were like behind glass. So I'm curious for both of you with sisters.
I've heard that before, and part of me resents that because I want to be like, I would be a nice dude either way.
But you're not.
Well, then I got 2 sisters, so your theory's wrong.
I'm sorry, go on.
No, but I want to say I'd be a nice guy either way. Maybe it did make us more comfortable having sisters with chicks, but I don't know.
I was mad at my sister a lot growing up.
I know my sisters were
she'd
also
be like
very
mean
to me.
Yeah.
Like,
so I don't know. Sometimes it had the opposite effect, where it's like, God damn it. It would kind of put me in a more like embittered point of view about it.
What did they do that was mean to you? Because my brothers knew
I just
that.
remember until I was about 12 years old, maybe 10, they were physically stronger than me and smarter and funnier than me, and they would tease me together, and then they would talk about me like I wasn't in the room. And I just remember feeling so helpless and like so angry.
Yeah, just like needling. You know?
Yeah, and then I had rage problems, and I'd lash out at them. Felt
Yeah,
really good,
dude.
honestly.
That fucking like, dude, the prepubescent.
Yeah.
I mean, we joke all the time about like the gamer you know, but that really is like that's why it's so funny because it's
You're
like,
just fuming there, and then it's like,
and it's you have like you literally are like a tea kettle. You have all this like energy, and it just can't go anywhere. So it's just like popping out of like a tiny hole in your head.
But you just had one, so at least she was like solo. It was like more 1v1.
That's true. Yeah, but I felt outmatched. And you know, we get along really well now, but there is something older siblings do that I think I've noticed, which is they always like they're always like, remember that thing when you were like 9? That
Every
was like,
new girlfriend I get, we got to go over like 6 stories of my past.
That
when
is
I was
so
and I
embarrassing.
just
Like,
yeah,
remember
that was
when we went
bad.
on that car ride and you just like couldn't stop crying, and you're just like, and we just kept being like, "What's wrong?" And you just get pissed. You know, it's just like
You had real serious problems. It's like, all right,
That's crazy.
Let's talk about it more.
That is interesting that you were also younger siblings. Because I wonder if you have a younger sister,
Yeah,
you might be a little more sympathetic.
Right.
But because, I had an older brother who also would piss me off.
Right.
And, you're still a younger sibling. That seems to trump,
That's
the
true.
gender
Yeah,
roles.
being younger trumps the gender of the older.
Right.
It may be the younger male with 2 older sisters is like in the weakest psychologically position, or at least was, because you feel
they can't
emasculated,
Yeah.
and they're just so good at making you feel bad about yourself.
Also, my sister was way better at sports than me, so I was
Yeah.
she was like really good at basketball, and I just fucking sucked at every sport I tried. So
Is she tall too for?
she was like you know, I think now she's probably like 5. I actually don't know how tall she is. Probably like 5'10" or something.
Okay.
5'9", 5'10". Yeah.
Man, that's awesome.
That is awesome. To be a tall chick.
No, that your sister's bullied you, honestly.
What is your favorite thing about weed?
We're gonna need another hour.
Yeah.
What's my favorite thing? I start to wonder what it is. I think it's a double-edged sword. The best and worst thing about weed is that it makes nothing fun.
Yes.
And so
yes, that's a
it's
great
like,
that's a great
so
point.
if I'm going to do nothing, or like if I'm going to go see a movie, it's going to be probably more entertaining or scarier or funnier. But if I'm doing nothing, it makes nothing enjoyable enough that I'll keep doing nothing.
Yeah.
Whereas if I didn't smoke weed, I'd probably have moments where I'm like, I'm doing nothing. I got to get out of here.
Yeah,
Do
yeah.
something.
It makes doing nothing this safe little fucking
Yeah.
Yeah, and if
womb
you
you can climb it and never get out.
if you've got a natural inclination to laziness, as
Yeah.
Jacob does,
Yeah.
that's gonna affect you that way, and that's too
But
bad
not
for
you.
It optimizes my mind.
You're looking forward to the train ride home from here, where you're gonna rip a pen.
But see, that's the perfect example. I'm not.
Look at that finger right there,
Yeah.
and he's
That's when you
talking
know I'm
and he's talking
serious.
about vaping weed. Pedro,
Wait a second. No, just that it's what I said, where I'm like, a train ride home is New York is not that exciting. Sometimes you dread it.
No,
and I'm
it's-
not really that excited for it. But to me, it's more like, well, this train ride home will be better now.
No,
if I have
I'm
it.
like actually excited for you.
Yeah,
to,
I'm
like,
glad you said
to
that.
be high on the NW
Right.
or
Yeah,
whatever.
because we're not going to take the train back together. I'm guessing.
maybe we will, maybe
what
we
train do you
won't.
take?
I don't know.
But then again, if it was like
get in different cars of the same train.
yeah, just to sit next to it. What do you think?
The
You feel
double-edged sword thing is true for
Right.
all of it, and I was gonna say like my favorite thing is like recently I popped an edible and I just started writing this little personal essay that I
that's
just felt
nice.
super inspired by. But then I suspect when I look back on it, it's gonna be not as good as I felt like it was as I was doing it. But it's still
I would
fun
say-
that I did that, and I don't know if I would have done that without doing that.
Yeah, and I would say that's not even a weed thing. That's just like the first draft of things are not as good as you feel like they are when you first write them.
Yeah,
So
but I
then
think
what-
weed makes it worse.
Interesting.
Like,
okay.
didn't you feel like with writing? Do you ever write? I mean, no,
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I think. I mean, when I was like smoking, I did it so much that eventually it just kind of
Levels out.
It just didn't make a difference. Except the difference it made was in my energy level later in the day, where like 3 p.m. I'd be like, "What the fuck?" I just felt like I'd been like run over by a car.
The worst
like,
thing about it
yeah.
is how it takes your drive to go out and
Yeah.
be social away.
Absolutely.
Yeah, talking to strangers, especially women high, is virtually impossible for me.
What's your favorite thing about wine, Greg? You work for a wine magazine.
Ooh,
I got nothing to say, so.
I think my favorite thing about wine is the way everyone experiences it differently, but there are certain like patterns that you can follow where people appreciate the same things. I don't know. This is kind of a word salad. Probably just the way it tastes and how it reflects different places.
Yeah, that's nice.
The history of it. Here, I got a better answer.
Yeah,
It just blends
Please.
everything, like culture, science,
Yeah.
cuisine, getting drunk. That's a nice plus.
Elitism.
I like that part of it. I like feeling better than other people when I
Yes,
drink it
yes,
with
you
out of
sure
my
do.
fridge.
You know what though? The wino is an archetype, and
Right.
that's very non-elitist.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's probably a cultural shift in how we view wine.
Yeah,
because
now I feel like
wine
wino is old. It's like an old school
yeah.
thing.
And
yeah.
there's probably like cheap wine.
Yeah.
You know, it's like maybe barely even wine, like
Yeah.
barley wine or whatever. It's probably an old school term. Honestly, for me, the main thing I like about wine is that it's the perfect rate that it gets too drunk.
That's a great point.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
really it. Like a beer, sometimes it's too slow. You have to pee a lot.
Fills
There's a lot
you
of
up, get
carbs.
bloated.
Yeah. Shots is like, whoa, that's way too fast. I think that's like, it's a nice sip. It's like it's like having a glass of whiskey with ice in it.
Yeah.
Versus a shot. I would much rather sip it at that rate.
And then there's a warmth to the wine drunk that, I mean, I guess there's a warmth to all kinds of drunks, but
I think so.
there's a kind of there's a nice intimate quality to
There is.
getting drunk off wine that
Yeah, if you're,
feels different.
If you're with a
than
girl
others.
or whatever, you're in a couple and you have a bottle of wine, it's so much more intimate than let's get a 6-pack of beer or like
that is funny. Yeah, that's not a couple activity at all.
I got
Like,
us some Coors Lights.
I got you a tall boy, babe.
Yeah.
Let's relax. No, I mean wine's cool.
And I like the way it changes. Every year it's different. And so it's just a more interesting thing to think about. Whereas like most liquors, they're trying to make it taste the same every time.
yeah.
And like Jack Daniels, whatever. They're
Right.
just trying to make it taste like Jack Daniels. Or wine's like, this is what nature gave us and we just kind of crafted it.
Let's Scott, can we pull up the painting?
Oh shit.
We're gonna look at painting. It's related to this topic. It's Edvard Munch, self-portrait with a bottle of wine.
You know, I saw another recently I saw a picture of a person next to a bottle of wine and it had the same phenomena where this dude looks like kind of unhappy.
Yeah, he's pretty bummed out. I mean, Edvard Munch is the guy who did the Scream,
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was
which is
wondering.
the famous, existential despair painting. So definitely not it. Yeah, because I was being hacky earlier. I was just Googling like paintings about wine to see which one we could talk about. And most of them are just, super fun. Like, kind of a bacchanal, people pouring, like Caravaggio. Like
I like the
painting.
Renaissance Bacchanal, like
Yeah.
Greek theater.
Yeah, it's a lot of that
ones.
stuff, but then this one caught my eye, and it paints a different picture of wine. Also, I guess he's drinking a white. There is what it looks like.
Or the glass is empty.
Or maybe the glass is empty.
I
Just
saw-
that little yellow kind of in the.
I saw a cool painting about wine that I'm thinking about separately from this. But
But do you guys like
this dude's
this
an
in
awesome
general?
painter. Yeah, I love this.
This is really
style.
cool. Yeah.
this is hard for me, to be honest.
You don't like it?
Because I am very detail oriented, and I like things to be. I like the skill aspect, right? The technical skill of it. So to be honest, part of what distracts me in this painting is the really crude, almost stick figure directly behind him with like the eye and smile.
Yeah, those guys
To-
are creepy.
to
They
me-
look they
to-
look like Jack Skellington.
Right. To me, it bothers me because the character in front, I really like that they kind of get away with the expression and his, everything about him with very few broad brushstrokes.
Yeah, it's a very like vivid expression,
Right.
even though it's sort of blurry looking.
Exactly. Whereas in the back, I kind of feel like they didn't even, with economy of lines, you can still give more expression and character to those people
Well,
in the back.
I think it's like portrait mode. He's like trying to like get your eye to go directly into this guy's face
Right.
and his expression, and those things behind him they exist, but they're not that important.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a cool way to think about it.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
That was my interpretation as well. But to me, if that's the goal, and I'm actually distracted by the stick figure guy, then it's kind of backfires. I actually like what he did all the way in the right, where there's
That's just
no
because you're
face at all.
neurotic, man, and you can't
No,
appreciate
but like
stuff.
see the guy all the way in the right
Yeah.
with no face.
I like that a lot.
That is cooler to me because there's no face. and it's like you still see the figure. Maybe his head is slumped over or something, like he's drunk. But I like that because they're faceless, so we're drawn into the guy. That crude face, that one crude face, not the guy on the left, the one in the just to the right of him.
It does clash a little, and it looks like he was
It's
just
like,
like, nah, whatever. I don't want to worry about that.
I feel like I'm like 4 glasses of wine in drunk
That's
looking
true.
at this painting.
I agree with that. I like that part.
There is a moving, swerving quality to looking at it that makes me feel kind of nauseous.
It's like a drunk painting. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so I like that about it a lot. And
But
even though it's a very like upsetting kind of scene,
not that upsetting.
No, but just it's like this guy's drinking alone,
Right.
and he's clearly bummed out. And the guy who painted it, also just I was like reading a little bit about he like, I think he either died of alcoholism or like went into like a fucking sanitarium because of it. You know, he was like, this is painted by like a mentally ill guy who had issues with alcohol. So, but the lights are quite like cheerful. There's a lot of like
the
daylight
colors.
coming in.
Yeah.
It's not like a brooding, gloomy scene.
Is it a train?
I think it's either a train or just like a restaurant.
But it's funny. I do feel a little trapped in the painting. Like it feels
Yeah.
like the walls are thick cement.
Yeah, and you can't really tell where like the right angles are. Like there's no clear corner on the left side.
Yeah, well, I think that's why it's like it makes me feel like I'm drunk
Right,
because I don't feel like I'm on solid ground looking at it.
And his chair looks like it's on fire. You know, like it's a lot of the
the chair's just kind of blending into the ground. There's no real solid quality to it.
This is like the Inagata Davida of paintings.
Sure.
You know that song?
Yeah, I do know that song. Yeah,
It
it's actually a pretty sick song.
It is. But like the story of how the song title changed because the guy was
In
so
the
hammered.
Garden of Eden,
Right.
and then
That's kind of like this guy could have been drunk as hell painting this.
Right.
And then everyone's like, "Oh, that's beautiful," and he's like, "Oh yeah, it is."
Dude, the more
It
I
is."
look at the guys behind the ones that you don't like, Jacob, I like them. I think
that's because you like to disagree.
I'm being maybe I'm just being contrarian, but I think there's something kind of ghoulish about them that I appreciate.
I like the guy on the left, not as much as the one in the middle, and the guy all the way on the right.
There's also but the guy on the right, all the way on the right, I think is really there's something horrifying
There is
about
terrifying.
just a no face.
Or is it his bald
person.
head and he's slumped forward, like he's drunk and he's kind of like his head's
Could be, yeah.
forward.
It's funny because the main guy doesn't look that drunk. Actually,
Yeah, he's just sad.
he just looks like he's
Yeah.
he's like contemplating something that's bothering him.
Also, it's funny that this is self portrait with a bottle of wine.
Oh, that's
So-
him. That's the painter.
Yeah. So that's just like the like the lack of it's. I guess it's not a lack of vanity. It's almost like the opposite of vanity. It's
Yeah.
like, look how much of a fucking loser
Yeah,
I am.
this guy's an incel.
Yeah, it's like this is like the worst, most depressing selfie ever taken.
Yeah. I mean, he looks pretty handsome, but he looks like a depressed, handsome guy.
I've painted some self portraits of myself,
Yeah, I've seen them.
and I look sad in some of them.
Oh,
and
that's
I'm just
funny.
like, what's going on there?
How do you do a self portrait? Do you like take a selfie and then paint that, or do
Yeah, I
you?
take a picture of myself.
Nice.
Phone.
Yeah.
I mean, when I take pictures of you, you generally look sad. That's
How frequently are you taking pictures of me?
I've got a camera recently, and I'm like, when I bring it around, Greg's like, "Don't freaking point that thing at me, dude." He's like, "So."
Yeah, I'm sad
upset
because I'm
about it.
hanging out with you.
I think it's also 'cause you come around with your like, you have a nice camera. People feel self conscious.
I know.
And so it's like there's a weird way in which you're like, I don't know how to pose and just be yourself. It's like, yeah, but what is
So, but see, that's why I think I feel the exact same way.
Yeah.
Which is why when I see Greg do that, I'm almost like, "Hey, let's work on this. Like, let's try to figure out how to be comfortable."
But
Like,
maybe
don't
maybe
focus
Greg
on the
doesn't want to
camera.
go on the same journey as you,
That's fair, but he's going on it with me.
no matter what.
But there are some people I know, like this one guy, my friend of mine, Gunner. He's the opposite. Like when I like to take pictures, I prefer people not to look at the camera. I like a candid photo.
Yeah.
He cannot. I mean, he's a very handsome guy, but he cannot not look at the camera. It's like talking to somebody and we take a picture. He like looks in, like starts posing, and I'm like,
Yeah.
If I tell him, hey, like just be natural, he can't. He's like, I have to pose.
I mean, I almost think I don't know how it seems like he's your age. He's our age, right?
Yeah, a little bit younger, but yeah.
But I feel like depending on the generation, it's like being natural now is like, well, no, you do look at the camera because that's like all people.
I think he's also just grew up as a good-looking guy and
Yeah.
probably photographed a lot. And he's like, this is how people always do this. They take pictures
Yeah.
of me. I enjoy it. Whereas I was like just ashamed of it. I was like scared of pictures.
Do you like how you look now?
I'm fine with how I look, but I there's nothing that will make me. When people pose for photos, I cannot look at them. Not even when I'm taking them. It doesn't matter. If Greg it was like, hey, Pedro, let me take a picture of you. And he
Yeah.
pulls out his phone. I would be like, I can't look at Pedro pose.
Too intimate?
It's just seeing a side of somebody
Yeah.
that you don't want to see.
The side that's the vain side?
It's like, this is this is how I look good. It's
Yeah.
like that. This is how I look good. And it's like, I see them in front of the mirror. You know,
Yeah.
like I see them doing it over and over again. And like them like, yeah, it's just, sometimes it's fine. You know, like sometimes like an attractive person, they're just really good at it. It's natural and it doesn't make me uncomfortable. But you see the person that's like, okay, time for a picture. And then they're like, and you're like, oh my God.
I don't like, I've never found the right smile to make
Yeah,
when
me
I'm
neither.
taking a picture.
Yeah, whenever I'm in a photo, like my face just wants to be like, and there's so many pictures of me with friends like that. There's a good picture of me with John and Maddie Chimbor and some other dudes way back then, and they're all comics. They're all smiling, and I'm just at the end like,
Yeah.
I was like, because I can't do it.
I know, it's hard. When I was teaching ESL at the end of the cycle, usually people like want to take a picture, which is very nice. You know, they're like excited. This is just a funny stereotype that I found to be true every time. African guys never smile.
Really?
They're just like super excited.
Keeping it hard.
They like really want to take a picture because they're like super nice and they're like smiling up until the picture's taken, and then they just fucking and they're just like super stolid.
Eastern Europeans I've seen do that as well.
Yeah.
Like okay, let me take a picture.
Yeah.
There was one panic-inducing moment where I ran into my friend's really hot sister, and I was like right after college.
Yeah.
She was like older and hot and confident, and I was so nervous. And then she's like, "Oh, here's my friend," and her friend was like even hotter and cooler.
Wow.
And they're like, "Let's take a picture together." And I was so insecure about it. And
Yeah.
I was like, "Okay, like, hey, I don't really know you that well, but I'll do it." And she was like kind of drunk, and they kept trying to take the picture, and I was bombing.
Yeah.
And the worst thing, her hot
You were
friend,
what do you mean? Like you were trying
every
to...
picture was bad. And her,
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just kind of like, okay, can I be done? And like go back to my friends.
Yeah.
Her hot friend just looks at the phone and goes, "You're not even smiling. Like, what's wrong with you?" It was like the childhood thing. Like,
Yeah.
why are you not smiling? And I was like, I don't know. And I just walked away.
Is there a particularly embarrassing picture of yourself in public that you can think of? I have an answer to this. Is what I'm asking. Like
In public, what do you mean?
Like on
it's
social
taken in
media
public?
somewhere,
Oh.
like a picture of yourself on social media that you've seen and been like, oh my God, I hate that.
No, because I think they're funny now. Because yeah, like for Halloween, I dressed up. I don't even. My brother just sent me a bunch of weird things that weren't a costume, but it kind of looked like maybe the Seinfeld episode where he has that really like flowery kind of shirt that he doesn't want to wear. It looks like a pirate's shirt.
Yeah.
It was like that, but
The puffy shirt,
right?
wasn't it?
It was
Yeah.
like that, but it was sleeveless.
Yeah.
And I wore it just to be funny.
Yeah.
But then someone took a picture where it was like I just looked so corny.
Yeah.
And like I really liked this shirt, and people posted it on Facebook and were just like making fun of me. And I was like, okay, it's funny, but also it hurts my feelings. Now I
Yeah.
look at it and I'm like, that's a
Now you don't feel.
picture.
Yeah. What about you, Greg?
I can't think of any.
What about that picture you just mentioned with all the comics smiling?
Well, it's not on. I don't know. I mean, that's somewhere buried in social media. It's also
Yeah.
not that bad. Like, I'm sure there's worse.
Mine
pictures
is
of me.
I'm like cringing thinking about it. Do you guys remember the writer Tucker Max?
Oh yeah, the guy who faked a bunch of
Yeah.
stories about
Yeah.
anal
Yeah,
sex.
yeah. So I was a fan of his writing in senior year of high school, and me and my friend went to a book signing at Borders.
Oh my god.
And I had I had just a goatee, like the Fred Durst goatee, and so it's me. I'm either hover handing or just like leaning, and it's just me with a goatee next to Tucker Max when I was like 17. That's a very embarrassing picture. That's probably maybe on Facebook still. If you go back to 2007 or whatever, or 2009.
Well, I have a bunch of questions, but you just reminded me that
Yeah.
what's the most embarrassing is always the earnest photo. Like the college one I mentioned wasn't as bad.
Right.
I remember in high school there's a picture where I was in Europe with my friends, or like just after high school.
Yeah.
And I remember posing, thinking like this is gonna be like a model shot.
No, dude, it's
like I
yeah.
thought that I would look
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah, yeah,
And then
yeah.
even when he showed it to me, I was like, oh, I actually look pretty good in that photo. And then
Yeah.
the second he posted it, I was like, oh my
Yeah.
fucking god, dude.
No, it's true. Yeah, the things that you think are cool at the moment are always gonna come bite you in the ass.
You can't try to be cool. That's
Yeah.
what you learn as I got
Yeah.
older. You're either cool or you're not. You can't be like, this is gonna be cool. You can't do that.
But anyway, do you have any other questions about when I met Tucker Max?
Yeah, well, is he handsome?
No, he's a little. Yeah, no, I wouldn't say so. I would say he's not like ugly, but he's not
Right.
like a. He's not a fucking stud.
And was he doing like a reading or trying to be funny or do Q&As, or was he just... I picture him as a guy who actually has no social skills and is like kind of hiding behind his book.
No, he was just I don't even think he did a Q&A. I just think he was just signing and selling his book.
Something off-putting about that name.
Tucker, yeah, absolutely.
It's like a
It
bad
sounds like a
name.
porn star's name,
Yeah.
but like one that ends up being a serial killer. Or
Now
something.
he's like a hardcore survivalist. he's like you need to like learn how to defend yourself and your family, and he trains with like fucking hardcore military people. And I think he
Krav Maga.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think there's some there's some collabs with the IDF involved. I think he's doing, and yeah,
That's incredible.
Yeah.
What a career arc.
I know. Yeah. So that's my most embarrassing photo.
Good writer though.
You should have it up. You should have had it up there, dude.
Yeah,
At least post it in the
dude. I think I would. I don't.
the edit.
Yeah, I might. I think
If you don't, I will.
I don't think I have the. Maybe I have good enough self-esteem to do that to myself.
You were
but-
17.
Yeah, but that's old enough to know. I feel like sometimes people are like, "Oh yeah, when I was 17, I loved the Velvet Underground." Like, I remember when I went to college, everybody I met seemed to already have a cool personality in freshman year, and I was just like, "Fucking how? I'm
Yeah.
like an idiot. I don't know anything. I don't know what I like. I don't know."
See, I feel like you were cool when you started college.
I think I was my college years. I was the biggest loser in any in any like section of my life.
Nice. Yeah.
I wasn't a full loser, but I
No,
I,
sure,
I
but
didn't
like
have
if-
that many friends.
Yeah.
And wasn't that very like.
I said
was
that
kinda
recently, and
social.
you kind of denied it.
That I was a huge loser
Yeah.
in college. Well, probably because I was being combative.
yeah.
And I wasn't a loser. I just
Why do you think that
I just
was?
feel like after college I had more friends and a more active and interesting life than.
But why do you think in college you went to USC?
You know what?
that
You
you're
know
like,
what?
you're
You know what I think it
handsome
was?
guy,
I think
water
part of
polo?
it was because I wasn't that handsome then, and also for a while, my freshman year in college. You guys ever have this? I was just like, I'm just gonna be a weird looking guy. The way my face was then, I just didn't like. I didn't
Like
dislike it. I was
you
just-
mean like you had resigned yourself to?
Oh, I thought you meant you were like proactive. Like I'm just
Yeah.
gonna be freaking ugly. right now.
No, I resigned myself to it.
Did you didn't try to grow facial hair or anything, did you?
No, but I think what happened was in high school, I went to public schools that were like really black and Latino and really working class in Pasadena, just a nice blend of really normal people. And then I went to USC and I saw all these like tall, rich, blonde people.
Yeah.
And I felt intimidated and uncomfortable with their cultures.
That makes
Very
sense.
interesting. Yeah, and then also it's like there's probably something different about going to USC as a native Angelino than people going to USC from like other
Yeah,
places.
and I
or-
grew
yeah.
up around it and stuff,
Yeah.
so it wasn't like a huge destination for
Right,
me.
right.
Right. You were Nepo baby, right?
Big time.
Yeah. Didn't deserve to get in.
My mom says I would have got in anyway.
Oh,
nice.
the one who got you in.
Nice.
That's what she says.
Did you apply to USC?
No, I didn't apply.
You seem like you would have.
He went
I
to
mean,
a better school than USC.
I went to a comparable school. Yeah,
I know you went to a
but
great
yeah.
better.
school.
It's better.
It's like I feel like USC is good though. I don't
It's
know.
very
Oh, of
good,
course.
but
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you went to a great school. I just meant that they're both in California.
Yeah,
You're
no,
into the
I would
arts
say the
and
culture
film
is
and
pretty
stuff.
similar.
Yeah.
It's like I guess Pomona is smaller and more pretentious.
Yeah, and we're like douchier and
Yeah.
just bigger.
For sure.
Intellectuals at your school, like the.
Oh yeah. People,
Yeah,
people
super
quoting,
brainiacs,
People
man.
quoting Foucault all the time, and
Remember the term "sad boy" was kind of a term for like usually like a handsome guy who's
Yeah.
like brooding and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
he's like reading Robert Frost and whatever,
Uh-huh.
but he's like handsome and.
Yeah.
I heard someone say that there's maybe. It was my friend went to Pitzer. No, you went to Pomona.
Yeah. There's
My friend
a
went
little
to
bit of
Pitzer,
that
and
around
somebody
there.
said, "Oh, Pitzer has a bunch of sad boys."
Yeah.
and I was,
But
so that's
just
what
because it was Southern Cal, it was also just a lot of like handsome, smart guys who were like walking around in flip flops all the time and just seemed to have it figured out.
that's so cool.
Yeah. And I remember presenting them.
Do you think you ever project that onto people?
Definitely.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm sure you've said that about somebody, and they're like, "I don't feel that way about myself."
Yeah, no, I'm actually really, I'm actually really
I'm
sad.
a loser.
It is
Yeah.
funny how I have this in life when I see, women are super attractive. I'm like, oh, she's so hot and cool, or
Yeah.
guys
Yeah.
so successful. But probably some people think that about us, and it's like we're
Not
miserable
you,
pricks.
not you, but yeah, I do think people have thought that about me before. No, I know what you mean.
Scott, can we pull up the poem? Okay, this is a poem. This is part of Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. Some options. One of us can read it, or we can listen to an AI voiceover lady read it.
I want Greg to read this.
Okay. Greg, can you read it?
Yes, Jacob. Yes, Pedro. Earth, my likeness. A poem by, who is it?
Walt Whitman.
Walt Whitman. Earth, my likeness. Though you look so impassive, ample, and spheric there, I now suspect that is not all. I now suspect there is something fierce in you, eligible to burst forth. For an athlete is enamored of me, and I of him. But toward him there is something fierce and terrible in me, eligible to burst forth. I dare not tell it in words, not even in these songs.
What do you guys think this poem's about?
I don't know. I was just trying really hard to read it well.
You did good.
Yeah, that was a really good
Thank
job,
you.
Greg. Jealousy, maybe, or no. But he says fierce and eligible, or fierce and you eligible to burst forth. So that's what's confusing. Is he's saying you look impassive, like you look like you're not doing much.
Yeah.
But inside there's this yearning and
there's like a surging energy.
This surging energy. So, but then for him to say that the athlete is enamored of me and I like him, but there is still something towards him that is fierce and terrible.
Yeah.
So he's kind of drawing a parallel between these two feelings, and yet with Earth, he's basically to me it seems like beautiful, like nature and intensity.
Yeah.
And then with him towards the runner, when he says fierce and terrible, it seems like he's like bitter or envious of them. And
I don't think he's envious though, because the athlete loves him.
Right, but that's what he's saying. He's like, for an athlete is enamored of me and I of him. So they both like each other.
Yeah.
But then just towards him, there's something terrible. And so there's a
I
one-way
think it's his
street.
lust. His lust is fierce and terrible, and it's going to burst forth. And
For an athlete?
yeah, I think because this is like part of the part of Leaves of Grass where he has a bunch of poems about like being in love with men.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so I think this is like there's an athletic man who's in love with him, and and Walt is in love with him as well, and he wants to have sex with him so bad that it's fierce and terrible and akin to like the rumblings of the earth.
And doesn't want to say it out loud.
Yeah, and like can't even say it out loud how terrible it is.
I didn't know
That's
Walt
cool.
Whitman was gay.
Me neither.
Yeah, I think he was like everything. I think
Pan?
I think he was pan. Yeah.
To me, this gets at something that I was thinking about recently, which is that like inside of all of us, there are just such strong wells of emotions.
Yep.
That even if we don't logically want to express them, they're swirling in there, and it's like basically being a sober adult is like filtering those into an acceptable way that's productive for your life, instead of like screaming about whatever is bothering you.
For sure.
Yeah, or you could just get a therapist, you know.
Okay, don't even get me started on that. Don't even get me started on
He's
that.
like, we're all walking around with these crazy emotions and feelings, and there's nowhere to put them and no one to talk to.
But it's funny
about.
that you say he should get a therapist, because I feel like that's like a summary of a lot of what Freud was talking about, which is like the discontents of living in civilization, and like you have these primal yearnings that you don't know how to sort of address or express. And this is where the anxieties and neuroses of being like a person in society come from. Yeah. So even if you do have a therapist, you still struggle with those things.
I guess I just assumed that he's talking generally about it, whereas therapists work with you personally and intimately about those specific feelings.
And also,
emotions.
most therapists would probably say like Freud was wrong about everything.
Everything except wanting to have sex with your mom.
Because she's hot.
That's true. Yeah. What if your therapist is like, let's see a picture of your mom and we'll figure this out.
I mean, I think it's not even necessarily society that's required for this, like what the theme this is getting at. It's just being a human being.
Yeah, I agree with that. Do you guys like this poem?
As far as poems go, I like it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good.
Why is enamored spelled OUR''D? That pissed me off.
That's how they did it back then, dude.
That's true. That does annoy me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't like the apostrophe-D stuff in poetry.
And also, I just think the word spheric is funny. It's like such a non-adjective, but it's also, it's like, Earth, you're so spherical. It's like,
yeah, it's kind of like a dumb thing to say about Earth.
I like it. I mean, it's kind of,
but I also like it. I don't know. I like that. I like that string of sounds. Like, though you look so impassive, ample and spheric there.
Right.
There is a music to that I enjoy.
Also, whenever I think of ample, I think of ample bosom.
No, that's why I like it. Well, and I think he was probably kind of.
Right, he's pan. I forgot.
Ample.
Yeah, he was a horny, passionate poet.
And ample and spheric. There's a French expression, I think.
Yeah.
You say, "Elle a du monde au balcon," which means like she has the world on a balcony or something, which means you have large breasts.
Nice.
That's how they describe large. It's like an old expression.
I like that.
It's like two
That's beautiful.
Earths on a balcony.
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
what
That's
you know?
hot.
So that's what I thought about this. It did turn me on. At the
And
beginning.
then also the idea of something being eligible to burst forth is a really interesting way to say it.
No, it's cool.
Yeah.
Bursting, another sexual thing.
Love it.
It's a horny poem.
It's a very horny poem. I wonder what kind of athlete was enamored of him.
He's got fierce. He's got bursting. He's got ample, spheric.
Oh, here's another thing I don't like about is that eligible is split into two lines for no reason.
Well, I don't get poems. They're just like,
Yeah, how do they decide the line breaks?
yeah. And what's the meaning of it?
And interestingly enough, this is kind of a boring fact, but I noticed it. The edition of Leaves of Grass that I have, the second eligible is not split up into two lines. But then I looked it up online, and this is. And so I wonder if like some editor,
Yeah, they're like, we
decided-
actually did research and blah, 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 and
yeah, and it's like it to me it doesn't make sense that eligible would be split up into two lines. It's kind of a pointless.
unless there's some emphasis where they think that's how it's supposed to be read. Like, but toward there is nothing but toward him there is something fierce and terrible in me, eligible to burst forth. Like there's kind of like an
Right, but
implied
then you
pause.
should just have
Yeah.
eligible
Right,
in one
right.
line. Why would
Right.
you split up the word
and
itself? It just-
terrible in me, eligible to burst forth.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
stupid.
I normally like feel kind of I can't figure out what I feel about poems that don't rhyme or don't have an obvious
They piss me
meter.
off. They piss me off. For
But
sure.
this I like. I think this has a real music to it.
Well, I like how it's like the painting where it like just it's evocative.
Yeah.
And it's like he says, I dare not tell it in words, not even in these songs, and that's sort of like conveying what's happening here. It's like you can't even say it quite in words. You just kind of have to hint at this feeling.
Yeah, especially in the context of the other poems like around it, which they're all like super horny and pretty explicit. And like, so it's like, dude, what is the feeling that's so terrible? You couldn't even say it in this string of poetry where you're like talking about having sex with guys. It's like,
You don't wanna know what I'm
talking
thinking.
about that in, the 19th century when that was like very much not chill to talk about publicly.
Yeah, it's sad that he refers to it as terrible
Right.
in him, eligible to burst forth.
well, that to me is like that's like a horny guy thing.
Yeah.
It's almost like this shame of like, you won't even want to know.
It's like
what I'm
you
thinking
jerking
about.
the first time you jerked off, just going, no!
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah.
Your mom hears you in your
Yeah.
room.
My mom said, "What happened?" And I said, "Something fierce and terrible.
yeah, sort of,
It's
yeah.
eligible to burst forth, Mom," and it did.
Bram Stoker, the guy who wrote Dracula, read Leaves of Grass, read these poems, and famously wrote a letter to Walt Whitman where he was like, "You understand something about me that nobody else does." And
So, do you think he was gay too?
a lot of people think that, yeah. It was never confirmed, but yeah, that is a big aspect of the kind of lore of Bram Stoker. That
But wasn't that book written for horny women, sort of?
it is a horny book, and it's like Dracula and Twilight are like.
Right.
Very similar, even
And-
though Dracula is like, literature and Twilight isn't.
Who's the Dracula character who's like kind of the hero, sort of? He's like a doctor. He's supposed to be like tall and handsome.
Yeah, I forget
Like
I
that
forget his
character, I remember reading being like, this was written for people who are into men.
name. No, for sure.
Because I'm picturing like Hugh Jackman, and he's like the sexiest.
Well,
character
there's
in the whole
three.
book.
There's three like hot guys.
Yeah.
In Dracula, like all there, and there's like a, yeah. It is like a very, it's very horny, and like the scenes where Dracula is like hovering over somebody, they have like a terrified kind of sexuality to them.
Yeah.
So there is an argument about Dracula, which is that it was like kind of him processing his sexuality in ways that he didn't find acceptable in like Victorian society, and so he, filtered it through this like monster.
Was that the book where they originally released it in like parts?
Yes, they did,
And,
but
like,
they
a
did
news-
that a lot.
It was like in a newspaper. It was
They did
supposed to be,
that
like,
with
the
a
end
lot
a
of
news-
books in the
Okay.
in that era.
And he stole a lot of that material
I don't-
from Nosferatu. Isn't that the whole thing people are saying?
well, Nosferatu was a movie.
I remember someone saying a criticism. They're like, "Oh, well, Bram Stoker stole all of that based on this older book that he."
I mean, there were other vampire books.
okay,
around,
maybe
yeah.
that's just what it was.
But anyway, I just thought that was cool
Right.
that like he
cool?
read Walt Whitman and was like, "Oh, you
get
see me."
You see my horniness.
Yeah.
Do you feel like this speaks to you?
I don't know. I think that dude needs to relax a little bit to be
Walt
like,
Whitman
oh, no,
or
Bram Stoker. Oh, you're the only one who understands me. It's like, no, he's just writing good poems that everyone
Yeah.
can agree with.
Yeah, the parasocial relationship.
Those guys were so intense back then.
Well, yeah, no, I think Bram Stoker did need to relax. He was like very overworked and didn't really like have any outlets. And
Dude, that's
yeah.
a hot take, man.
He needed to relax.
Bram
Yeah.
Stoker needed to
I think he
relax.
did. Yeah,
He's got his chill name, but he wasn't a
Yeah.
chill
He
dude.
does have a chill. It's
He
kind of
probably-
a scary name.
yeah. He probably wouldn't have written the. He probably wouldn't have written what he wrote if he relaxed more.
He's Scottish or Irish?
Irish.
Because there's a festival in the town he grew up where they like celebrate Bram Stoker,
Oh, that's cool.
and they all dress up like.
You like
Irish.
Dracula, right? We read it around the same
I
time.
did like the book. I thought it was very cool to read an old book that was so exciting and a really captivating read.
Yeah.
Like I remember the train ride to Transylvania. I think
Oh.
we've even talked about it, how well he writes
Awesome.
about like the mountains, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh man, this feels like a movie.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah,
reading.
yeah.
Okay, what do we have up here? Is it true that Oscar? Is it true that?
Oh. So yeah.
Oh,
Sorry.
my
So
God.
Scott pulled up a Quora question. Is it true that Oscar Wilde and Walt Whitman had sex? The answer is maybe. We know that they met in 1882 for a private conversation. So yeah, could they have had sex? Sure. Did they? We can never know.
Whoa, I bear.
So they just
Whitman's
met.
kiss on my lips.
Yeah.
This is kind of like the Abraham Lincoln thing, though, where they're like, was Abraham Lincoln gay? And they're like, look in this book. He said he had sex with men. And then the historian's like, actually, a lot of people had sex with men.
I love how it was like, we know they met in 1882. What they did there, we don't know.
it's like-
but maybe they had sex.
Yeah.
Let's just think about this. Russ.
Did Jacob Bly, Greg Warner, and Pedro Salinas have sex at Grove 34? We know they had a 2-hour podcast, but
Afterwards, Greg tweeted, I feel the
Yeah.
kiss of Jacob's
Yeah.
lips on me.
we know that Jacob ripped a vape pen and took a ride home at 7, but in between.
There's 7 minutes
Yeah,
that we don't
Counting
know.
for-
Yeah.
Well, boys, it's been a pleasure having
Yeah, it
you.
has.
Do you guys
Boys again.
Yeah, boys forever. Do you guys want to plug anything of yours? That Jacob, you're great on Instagram.
Jacob H. Lie, Jacob Lie, weird last name, Lie, anywhere. Putting funny videos out there,
Yeah.
little VFX, little music sometimes.
It's because his whole existence is a sham.
Yeah, it's all fake. It's all
Greg,
fake.
is there anything you want to share?
I'm Broccoli Greg on
Broccoli
Instagram,
Greg.
but I
Follow-
don't think anything specific.
All right, boys. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Pedro. That was great.
Hell yeah. All right, sweet. We fucking did it.
Hello, dear.